What if I told you that the next world war has already begun? Not on land, not in the air, not even in space. Underwater. Right now, as you watch this video, there are machines sitting at the bottom of the ocean floor. Machines built by the United States. Machines that have been sitting there for weeks, maybe months. Completely silent, completely invisible, completely autonomous. And the people they were designed to watch have absolutely no idea they're there. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will understand something that most people will never know. Something that the Pentagon has spent billions of dollars trying to keep quiet. Something that changes everything you thought you knew about how wars are fought, and how they are won before they even begin. Most people think that military power means aircraft carriers, fighter jets, missile batteries, the things you can see on the news. But most people completely miss the part that actually matters. You see, the most dangerous weapons in the world aren't the ones that make the biggest explosions. They're the ones that nobody knows exist until it's too late. To start, let's talk about something that happened in 2024 that almost nobody reported on. A classified briefing was delivered to the Senate Armed Services Committee. The subject? A new category of weapon that the United States Navy had been developing in total secrecy for nearly a decade. The briefing lasted 3 hours. When it was over, one senior senator walked out and said only 4 words to his aide: "We are not ready." He wasn't talking about America, he was talking about China. But here's the part that changes everything. What was in that briefing wasn't a new missile. It wasn't a new aircraft. It was a fleet of machines that don't breathe, don't need fuel, don't surface, and can't be detected by any sonar system currently deployed by any Navy on Earth. And right now, they are already in the water. Everyone focuses on the Taiwan Strait conflict as an air and sea surface battle. F-35s versus J-20. Aircraft carriers versus missile barrages. That's what the news covers. That's what the analysts debate. But most people completely miss what's happening 600 feet below the surface. You see, the Taiwan Strait is only 110 miles wide at its narrowest point. The average depth is just 197 feet, barely deeper than a 20-story building is tall. That makes it one of the most strategically critical and physically confined bodies of water on the planet. Every Chinese submarine that wants to move from the South China Sea to the Pacific has to pass through a handful of choke points. Every Chinese naval vessel, every supply ship, every troop transport. If China ever decided to invade Taiwan, virtually every asset they have would need to move through water that is shallow, confined, and, here's the part they don't want you to know, already being watched. But this geography alone isn't the whole story. The deeper problem is that traditional submarine warfare doesn't work well in shallow water. Nuclear submarines, the kind the US Navy has relied on for 60 years, are enormous. They're designed for the deep ocean. The USS Virginia-class attack submarine is 377 feet long and displaces 7,800 tons of water. In a channel that's only 200 feet deep, that's not a submarine, that's a target. On top of that, shallow water is acoustically chaotic. Sound bounces differently. Temperature layers that submarines normally use to hide simply don't exist. And in the Taiwan Strait specifically, there is so much commercial shipping traffic, thousands of vessels per year, that the acoustic environment is essentially impossible to operate in for conventional submarines. So the United States faced a problem. The most important body of water in the world for the next potential conflict couldn't be controlled by traditional means. And that's exactly when DARPA started building something new. In February 2024, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, publicly confirmed something that had been classified for years. A program called Manta Ray. Named after the ocean creature that glides silently along the ocean floor. And what they confirmed was genuinely terrifying. The Manta Ray is a large underwater drone, 45 feet long, built by Northrop Grumman, the same company that built the B-2 stealth bomber. It was designed from the ground up to do one specific thing that no weapon in American history has ever been able to do: disappear into the ocean, and never come back up. You see, every weapon in the US arsenal, every submarine, every ship, every aircraft, eventually needs something: fuel, maintenance, a crew that needs to eat and sleep. Even the most advanced nuclear submarine on Earth needs to return to port every few months. The Manta Ray doesn't. The drone uses a technology called ocean thermal energy conversion. The ocean isn't one temperature throughout. Warm water sits near the surface. Cold water sits at depth. The temperature difference between those layers, sometimes as much as 36 degrees Fahrenheit, can be converted into electricity. The Manta Ray harvests that energy continuously, from the ocean itself, indefinitely. But this power source alone isn't enough to explain why it's so dangerous. The drone can anchor itself to the ocean floor using a specialized mooring system and enter what engineers call a hibernate mode. In this state, it draws almost zero power. Its acoustic signature becomes essentially zero. To any sonar system in the world, Chinese, Russian, Iranian, it looks exactly like a rock. We are talking about a vehicle that can be deployed, sent to a specific location, and simply wait. Wait for a week, wait for a month, wait for 6 months, and when it receives a signal, or when it detects something it was programmed to respond to, it wakes up. The drone carries a modular payload bay. The current publicly acknowledged version is a sensor suite: hydrophones, cameras, electromagnetic sensors. It can track every submarine, every ship, every undersea cable that passes within range. But the payload bay can be changed. The modular design means the same vehicle that today carries sensors could tomorrow carry something else entirely. Defense analysts who have reviewed the program's architecture note that the payload specifications are suspiciously large for a pure surveillance platform, significantly larger than any sensor package currently known to exist. The Manta Ray is not the only program. Most people think of the US underwater drone program as a single system, one vehicle, one technology. But what DARPA and the Navy have actually built is something far more ambitious and far more frightening. It's called the Ghost Fleet. The Ghost Fleet isn't an official program name. It's a term used by defense analysts to describe the network of autonomous underwater vehicles that the United States has been developing, testing, and quietly deploying since 2016. The Pentagon's fiscal year 2025 budget included $3.8 billion allocated to what the official documents call unmanned undersea systems. That's nearly 4 times what was budgeted in 2020. And that's just the money that appears in the public budget. The classified supplemental? Nobody outside of a handful of congressional offices knows that number. There are at least 4 distinct classes of autonomous underwater vehicle currently operational or in advanced testing with the US Navy. The first is the Orca, built by Boeing, 51 feet long, diesel-electric powered, range of over 6,500 miles without human intervention. The Navy has already accepted delivery of 4 Orca vehicles, with a contract for 9 more. Its official mission is listed as mine countermeasures, anti-submarine warfare, and strike. The second is the Snakehead, a large displacement vehicle designed to be launched from the modified torpedo tubes of Virginia-class submarines. It can be deployed from a submerged submarine, conduct its mission completely autonomously, and return to the submarine for recovery, all without ever surfacing. The Navy awarded Lockheed Martin a $97 million development contract in 2022. The current status is classified. The third is the Large Displacement Unmanned Underwater Vehicle. This is the category the Manta Ray falls into. Designed for month-long missions in contested waters, it doesn't need a submarine or a surface ship nearby. It launches, it goes. It operates completely on its own. And the fourth, this is the one that makes defense analysts genuinely nervous when they talk about it, is classified. Its name is classified, its size is classified, its mission is classified. What we know is that it exists because 3 separate defense contractors mentioned it obliquely in earnings calls between 2022 and 2024, and because a single line item appears in an unclassified budget appendix referring to an advanced program with details withheld under federal law. I spent 2 decades thinking the submarine was the apex predator of the ocean. Then I saw what they were building and I realized the submarine is about to become the hunted. Most people think this technology is only relevant to China and the Taiwan Strait. They're completely wrong. Right now, as US-Iran nuclear negotiations teeter on the edge of collapse, the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz have become arguably the most dangerous 21 miles of water on Earth. The Strait of Hormuz is even more strategically important than the Taiwan Strait. At its narrowest point, it's only 21 miles wide. Through that gap flows approximately 21 million barrels of oil every single day. That's roughly 21% of the world's total petroleum consumption. If that strait closes, for any reason, the global economy goes into shock within 72 hours. Iran knows this. It has always known this. Iran operates a fleet of approximately 19 submarines. Most of them are small. The Ghadir-class midget submarines, at only 115 feet long, are specifically designed for shallow water operations in the Persian Gulf. They're cheap, they're quiet, and they're absolutely lethal in confined water. On top of that, Iran has spent 30 years placing underwater mines, underwater sensors, and what Iranian military commanders have publicly called surprises waiting on the seabed. But the US has spent an equivalent amount of time and a vastly greater amount of money doing exactly the same thing from the other side. Defense analysts who track the Persian Gulf military balance estimate that the US Navy has maintained a persistent underwater drone presence in the Strait of Hormuz since at least 2019. When Iranian fast boats confronted US naval vessels in January 2024, what the Iranian commanders didn't know was that 3 autonomous underwater vehicles were tracking every Iranian submarine in the Gulf in real time. The Iranians think they know what's in that water. They have no idea. They are operating in a space that has already been mapped, monitored, and prepared. They just don't know it yet. The 2025 nuclear negotiations between the US and Iran taking place in Oman aren't just diplomatic theater. For the US military, every week of negotiations is another week of positioning, another week of sensor networks being extended, another week of the underwater picture becoming clearer. And if those negotiations fail, the underwater battlefield is already set. China is not sitting still. In 2018, a Philippine fishing vessel hauled in an unusual object from the South China Sea. It was a 7-foot-long, yellow torpedo-shaped device with Chinese writing on it. The United States immediately identified it as a Chinese underwater glider, a simple reconnaissance drone. The incident confirmed what US intelligence already suspected. China was deploying autonomous underwater vehicles in disputed waters. But that was 2018, 7 years ago. By 2022, Chinese military publications were openly discussing underwater drone swarms, networks of hundreds of small autonomous vehicles operating together, controlled by artificial intelligence, designed to overwhelm any defense system through sheer numbers. Not one Manta Ray, not 4 Orcas, hundreds of small, cheap, expendable drones acting as a single intelligent system. On top of that, China has deployed what defense analysts call an underwater Great Wall, a network of sensors, hydrophones, and monitoring stations on the seabed of the South China Sea, designed to detect any submarine or underwater vehicle passing through. The system reportedly extends from the first island chain, the line running from Japan, through Taiwan, through the Philippines, all the way to the second island chain, 1,500 miles further east. Because what we now have, for the first time in human history, is 2 major powers competing not just for control of the surface of the ocean, but for control of the ocean floor itself. What we are watching is the opening phase of a new kind of warfare, one that will be fought entirely by machines, in a domain where human beings cannot survive, using weapons that don't yet have names. There are rules for war on land, the Geneva Conventions, Rules of engagement. Protocols developed over centuries of brutal experience. There are rules for war in the air, international aviation law, clear definitions of what constitutes an act of war. There are even rules, fragile ones, for nuclear weapons, treaties, hotlines between capitals. There are no rules for autonomous underwater weapons. None. When a Manta Ray type vehicle detects a Chinese submarine and decides, on its own, based on its programming, without any human being involved in the decision, to take an action, what is that action? Is it surveillance? Is it an act of war? Is it something in between that international law has no category for? Nobody knows, because nobody has written the rules yet. In 1983, a Soviet early warning system detected what appeared to be 5 American nuclear missiles inbound. A single Soviet officer named Stanislav Petrov decided, against protocol, not to report the alert. He believed it was a false alarm. He was right. The system had confused sunlight reflecting off clouds with missile exhaust. Stanislav Petrov saved the world. Now imagine that same scenario, but instead of a human officer making a judgment call, it's an algorithm, a piece of software running on a machine sitting on the ocean floor. A machine programmed to respond to a specific set of conditions with a specific set of actions. No Stanislav Petrov, no phone call to make, no hesitation, just the code. And whatever the code was programmed to do. The thing that scares me isn't that these machines will be used in a war, it's that one of them might start one. Most people think that what happens at the bottom of the ocean has nothing to do with their daily life. They are wrong in a way that should make them genuinely uncomfortable. 97% of all international internet traffic travels through undersea cables. The cables that carry your emails, your videos, your bank transactions, your phone calls. There are approximately 400 of these cables crossing the ocean floor right now. They are completely unprotected. Any submarine or any autonomous underwater vehicle can locate them, tap them, or sever them with almost zero risk of detection. This happened, not hypothetically, in reality. In 2022, 2 undersea cables connecting the Shetland Islands to the Scottish mainland were severed. British intelligence concluded it was deliberate. The perpetrator was never officially identified. The incident caused a complete blackout of internet and phone service across an entire island chain. And then, the Nord Stream pipelines. September 2022. 2 of the most heavily monitored undersea infrastructure assets in the world, destroyed by explosive charges placed on the seabed. To this day, no country has been officially held responsible. The perpetrators moved through water. They left almost nothing behind. This is the world we are now living in. A world where the most important infrastructure of modern civilization runs along the bottom of the ocean, in the dark, where no human being can see it, in a space that is increasingly populated by autonomous machines belonging to governments that do not share the same interests. The United States is ahead in this race, right now, in 2025. The Ghost Fleet is real. The Manta Ray is real. The sensor networks are real. The investment is real. $3.8 billion in a single fiscal year for systems that most people have never heard of. But being ahead today doesn't mean staying ahead tomorrow. China is closing the gap faster than most estimates predicted 3 years ago. Iran is developing asymmetric underwater capabilities that don't need to match the US dollar for dollar. They just need to create enough uncertainty, enough chaos, enough risk to make the Strait of Hormuz too dangerous to guarantee. And somewhere at the bottom of the ocean, right now, machines are watching other machines, waiting. Every major shift in military history has followed the same pattern. A new technology emerges. One side deploys it in secret. The other side doesn't know it exists until the moment it's used. And by then, the war is already over before it started. The longbow at Agincourt, the tank at the Somme, the atomic bomb at Hiroshima, the precision-guided missile in Desert Storm. Each time, the side that controlled the new technology won, not because they had more soldiers, not because they had more money, but because they had a weapon that the other side didn't understand, couldn't see, and couldn't stop. The autonomous underwater vehicle is that weapon for this era. The countries that these systems are pointed at, China, Iran, Russia, they know they exist. They know America is deploying them. They are spending billions of their own money trying to build their own versions and trying to detect the American ones. But you, the person watching this video, you're only finding out about it right now. We are in an undersea arms race that makes the Cold War submarine competition look like a canoe race. The difference is, during the Cold War, everyone knew the competition existed. Today, most of the public has no idea this is happening. And that may be the most dangerous part of all. If the most decisive battle of the next war is already being fought, silently, invisibly, at the bottom of the ocean, and if the machines fighting it are making decisions without any human being in the loop, who is actually in control? Drop your answer in the comments, because I genuinely don't know, and I don't think anyone does. If this video changed the way you see what's happening right now, share it with someone who needs to know, because the mainstream media isn't covering this, and that silence is the loudest warning sign of all.